Hi everyone and welcome to my place. Today I'm here to answer a request from Sarah, and I think you're in the States, Sarah, and about 101 other people. And Sarah wants to know how to fix foam into hard-shaped containers. So I have decided today what we're going to do is we'll spend a wee bit of time on it, and we're going to look at the floral basics, and that's base foundationing. Very important, because if you can get this right now, you'll be able to do anything and you won't be stumped with your container. Now in front of me I've got this huge array of all sorts of containers, and I've got stuff like these here. These are pin holders, and these are what I started using when I used to do my nanny's flowers for her. This is it. These big lumps of lead with these little wee spiky things. You can still find them, and whenever I see them in second-hand shops, I just have to buy them to get my collection up. Then we used to use stuff like this, which is chicken mesh, for even harder to keep flowers in place, especially big church designs where you had lots and lots of flowers and they needed to stay there. And then before that, or well, about the same time, when I was doing my training in the 70s, we used to use this stuff here, which is called sphagnum moss, and that would be soaked into a bucket, and we would use that into posies. And then after that came good old foam, and foam is fantastic stuff, but it's not always the best thing to use in a container. So let's have a look at something like this kind of a trough here, which you could put your Oasis into that and push it down. Yeah, that'd be okay. And then you could use something like this tape here. Now this is, I call this Oasis fixing tape. This is fantastic stuff, but you have to put that across there, and it does stick to itself. But the thing is, unless you've got leaves that are going down, it's still going to cause a problem. Now what I do for some of the flowers that I use, I'm just going to take that out of there for a minute, and I'll come back to that very, very soon. What we used to do for containers like this is you would use stuff like this. Now this is plasticine. It's what the kids do modelling and things with. It's fantastic stuff, and this is what we used to use. Now the glue gun wasn't around at the time, so that sort of made life a bit easy, a bit difficult. You also couldn't use plaster of Paris to put it into place, because the plaster of Paris would slowly break down once you put the water in. So what we used to do is we used to get things, the plasticine, and then put that onto the bottom of that lead like so. And of course you used to prick your fingers, and it was a terrible, terrible, terrible thing to be dealing with. And then that would be pushed down into there once it was warm. And if it still moves, if you're doing this at your place, what I suggest you do is make sure that that is absolutely totally grease free, and then just get a little bit of sandpaper and give that a wee sand, and then just push that into place. Now believe it or not, it definitely does work, and this is what we used to do. You would just put your flowers into there like that. The only issue that you had was you couldn't go too high or too tall, because if you did, sometimes it would tip over. But that was what we did. Now the other thing that you can do is you can get stuff like this chicken mesh, and that would get pushed down into there, right down into there, and once you've got your water into there, it doesn't move. So what you would do with this is you would stick your flowers down through there, which meant that you could get them to go at any way that you wanted, like so. But when you were going in sideways, it was always going to be difficult. So if you're faced with that problem, the thing to do is to just snip that on the diagonal, so that when that goes into there like that, you can firmly wedge it. Now you do your arrangement first, and then after you've done your arrangement, you place it, or these arrangements are best placed on the surface that they're going to be sitting on, and then you put the water on. So also that when you're working this way, you work from your top flowers down. Usually you would do your foundations with your leaves and things around it. Well, you can't do it that way. You're best to do this so that the leaves just sort of poke down and stick in amongst the wire. But I will do arrangements like this in due course. Right, that is one way that you can do it. Now let's coming forward just ever so slightly, I'll get rid of that, to something like this type of a bowl here. Now you can get your foam, and you can cut that, and you can push that into there like so, and then just getting two other blocks, you can put, oops, a bit big, you can push a bit into there, and then you can put another piece into there. Now that will stay like that, and then what you can do is, once again, get your tape, because you're not going to see your tape on this type of a container. And then you can just run your tape across there and then bringing another piece over there. The only problem with something like this is you've got to remember where that crosses over, because you're going to have difficulty getting it through there. And if you upset that, then the whole thing's just going to fall to pieces. Right, so that's another way that you can do it. Now, what say you've got something like this here, a little posy of flowers. Now you can put the foam into there, but you're going to have the same problem that we had before, and that is that you're still going to have these little edges around here, and you're going to have to, you can either put the tape over or you can wedge in like I've done with this one over here. But this is what we used to do, and I'll use the sphagnum moss. I am a dab hand at this. Right, you used to have to get a big wad of it like this, and then that went into there like that. You used to put your sphagnum moss into there and then just go around and around and around and around like so until this was tight, tight, tight and tight and tight and firm, so that everything just all held back onto itself like so. Then to put the flowers in, if you were using hard stems like this, it was fine because you could just push them in. But this is what the old original posies used to be like. Okay, now for really difficult things to use, like perhaps you were using freesias and things like that, what you would do is we used to just get a satay stick or a meat stick or something, or a pencil, make that hole and then just push that into there. Honestly, I have made hundreds and hundreds of things like this. But if you're, and as those of you on the, what am I thinking, on the Northern Hemisphere are coming into your spring and you've got weddings, this is the best way to keep your flowers in the heat of summer, because the sphagnum moss just doesn't dry off. Okay, so that's that method. Right, let's go back to this one over here, because this is really quite difficult. Right, this is another thing that you can do. Get yourself a piece of foam. And I'll cut that a little bit shorter than that. You could possibly have cut that. In fact, we will. I'll cut that now. I'm just going through all this foam today, but I don't care. Right, cut your foam down the middle like that, and then push that down onto that pin holder like so, that it's nice and firm. Then, getting your sphagnum moss, really, really push that into there. This is, of all the ways that I have tried to solve the problems of working in this container, because these are really good if you've got like long trestle tables for a wedding and you want to have something that's long and elongated. This is probably by far the best way. So just push those that into there and then do the same around there. And the other thing is that with this method here, the moisture is retained in there, but also the moisture is retained in amongst the foam and stops it drying out. So you just have to really push that and wedge that in. And the other great thing about doing this is that, as I said, it keeps the moisture in, but once that sphagnum moss dries out, it really goes hard as a rock, so it's quite good to be working with. So that's that method, and then you are ready to design. Now, normally I would bring that up just a little bit taller, especially if I was going to be having things like gladioli coming out the sides. But in saying that, my rule of thumb now when I'm using things like gladioli or anything like these, the gentiana, I think that's gentiana, if it grows tall, I place it the way that it would grow. And for things that would grow out the side or droop down like ivy or thryptomene or anything soft and droopy like that, then you could bring those out the side. So there's just another little tip. Right, now this here also, I really love this type of container to work with, but look what it does. See how it slopes up like that? And then in the inside, oh, there's a bit of dirt on there. On the inside, it's got this little lip. Seriously, seriously difficult to work with. Now, I would use, depending on what flowers you were using, I'm making a terrible mess here, cut a piece of Oasis. In fact, you could take it right to the edge if you wanted to, but it's still not going to work because you've got this flat bit down here and then these bits that go out the side. And just to apologise, I've got two dear little boys and they've just got home from school and they're having a wee scrap. The joys of filming from home, never mind. Okay, this way again, I would still just get the moss and put the moss around the edge like so and really, really jam it up like I'm doing here so that that doesn't move. And the other thing is that you can put from there and spread it out like you could put some bigger Rayleigh leaves around the side like so. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you is these are the bowls that we have in the industry, and these are quite good containers to work with. Oops, I've used the wrong bit. But anyway, these, the Oasis is just, you can just cut it, and because it's got those little wee prongs into there, once that goes into there, it's nice and firm. Now, I've done something really, really bad now. I've only got a little bit of Oasis, which means that if I'm going to be putting something tall into there, that is not going to hold it. So remember the height. And normally what I like to do is, where's that bit there? I'll just take this bit out and I'll try that. I make a terrible mess here. Normally these take, the block can be cut into thirds. So I like to have a good, if we put that extra bit on there, I like to have a third to be putting into here. And put that into there like so. Now to fix that into place, once it's jammed in, you can just use a rubber band and put that across there like that, and that's all you need to do, and it's going to be nice and strong and firm. Right, what say you want to do something into a basket? Oh, I'll just have a wipe down here. So you've got something like this basket here. Right, the easiest way to do that is, right, I've got this container here, and I've cut all my Oasis. Oh, good on you, Esther, good thinking. So I'll just push these and just imagine that these are good, big, thick blocks of foam, one big bit wedged into there, and then I would just use a little bit of this. And if the basket is to be, you're going to be traveling with the basket, I like to just put 2 or 3 bits of that across there, run it around, and the great thing is that that sticks onto there. Now, if it is doing that, see how it's doing that now? Make sure it's firm before you go any further, because if it's wiggling now, it will continue to wiggle. But anyway, the other thing I would do too is I would still jam some foam down there, especially in the summer if you've got flowers going a long distance. Just shove that into there and make that nice and strong. Now for bits like that, see how it's doing that? If it's doing that, make sure it doesn't do that, because that's still going to give the movement. But for things like the basket, I would, done properly of course, I would just put that into there, and even though it's down a wee bit, most stems, if you just allow for that, and especially with something like a Raelia or ivy, you can stick it down and bring it out over the sides. Now for something like this, several ways that you can approach this. This is the other type of bowl that you can get in the industry. It's just, I'm not sure what size that one is, but they're cheap as cheap. What you can do with those is just put your foam into there, a big block or half a block of Oasis will go into there. Put either this across it, or you can put a rubber band across it, and you're off and ready to go. Or the other thing that you can do is to use something like cellophane. Plastic is much better, and what I've discovered over the years is the bin liners are by far the best thing to use, because bin liners don't leak. So you can just wrap that down. In fact, I'm wondering if I could get my son Slade, who is directing for me today, to go to the bottom cupboard and get me a bin liner out, please, so that I can show you exactly what I'm meaning. The thing with the cellophane is it's okay in an emergency, but if you're using something like this, oops, sorry, if you're using something like this, you'll find that it does wiggle around. You can wire that in if you want to, but to be perfectly honest, yeah, that's it, the other one, your left hand. You can use this and wire it in, but I don't like things when they're wobbling, especially if it's going to be delivered. Thank you. Right, what I mean by the bin liners is these ones here. These are fantastic because they don't leak, and you'll know yourself if you're doing flowers from home that they won't. So what I would do is just open that out like that, and then you could perhaps, or a green one would be better. Sometimes what I do is I just sew around there, and then you can put your foam straight into it and you are ready to go. Now, that's got that out of the way. Right, for things like this kind of container here, you could put, if you didn't want to use the foam and you didn't have any foam, because that's what I'm trying to cover today, what you can do is just shape this into the shape that you want. Oh, I used to hate working with this stuff because it used to invariably always spike into my fingers, and it's it's a bit big, this bit, but never mind, I'm not cutting it now because I haven't got my cutters. But then you would just make that into a single form, and then make sure that you've got your clippers so that you can cut those bits so that you can put your flowers in, and wedging that right down into there, believe it or not, will give you a really nice base to work on. And if you're using things like gladiolis, they'll stay in place. And what I used to do is just cut those little bits of wire there so that you can get your flowers in. And you can get, this comes in all sorts of sizes, but this is a little bit small for what I'd want. I'd really want the one that was nearly an inch wide so that you can get the flowers into it. Now, for things like this here, I really love this type of container, but it seriously is difficult to work with. For a container like this, I would probably just go for one single lot of flowers, shove them in, like say you're using gladiolos, 1.5 times the height of the container, and then just put some leaves or something around the outside of it just to soften that. But these containers were very popular years and years ago, but fortunately they're not, but I'm going to try and bring them back. The other thing that we used to do is we would get things like bits of bamboo and make these incredible structures where you just sort of like made like a grid that went over the top of it. But look, I hope I have helped you. There's lots and lots of other ways that we can look at in time to come, but I'll make sure that I get to putting designs into all of these so that you can see how they work. I hope I've been of assistance to especially you, Sarah, and the other 101 that were stuck for how to do it. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook to see what I'm up to, and also if you need assistance, drop me a note at esthersplace@gmail.com, and if you can, send me a photograph of the components that you've got or even a location of where it's to go, and then I am here to serve your every floral need. Thanks for watching. I'll see you another day.